WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. I'm not really sure if the Glenglassaugh Highland single malt Scotch whiskey Pedro Ximenez wood finish is rare and exotic, but I don't think there are that many videos of this online. Now, this is Whiskybase number 187665. This was bottled on the 2nd of December 2019. I did a bottle share over a year ago, and finally I have like a parking space for people to have their different samples, and finally the last person said, hey, let's do this, and now I can finally send him his last 10 CLs of this, and the rest of it belongs to me. All right, so what do we have here? Now, Glenglassaugh. I don't know what you actually know about them, but this bottling is 46%. This bottling says very, very tiny print and very light print, natural color, and non-chilled filtered. Thank you. And this bottle says Rachel Berry. So this belongs now to Brown-Forman, just like my comparison bottle does, and that's going to be the Glendronach 12. Now, the Glendronach 12 also has the signature of Rachel Berry here on the back. This is somewhat older. It says non-chilled filtered, natural color on this as well, 43%, and this is 12 years of age. Now, this is a mixture of Pedro Ximenez and Oloroso sherry casks, but it's the closest I could find here to compare the two of them. All right, so I would like to talk a little bit about the history of Glenglassaugh. Now, on the tin, on this little can, it says founded or established 1875, which is good. Now, in my nice little book here, which I thoroughly adore, our Malt Whiskey Yearbook 2023, it says here the following. In the year 1986, the distillery was mothballed. We're going to start there. Before that, it says reopens, closes, reconstruction, and so much happened between 1986 and 1875. So, the distillery was mothballed in 1986, and then in the year 2008. So it's a couple years later on. The distillery is bought by, and it's called the SCAENT, Skint Group for $5 million. They released in the first year a 21, 30, and a 40-year-old edition. Hey, you had old barrels in the warehouse, get rid of them, try to make some money. All right, so what happens is then Ben Riach Distilling Company, Billy Walker, 2013, so 5 years later, buys the distillery. And they released then their first core range, which was the Glenglassaugh Revival, Revolution, and the Torfa. That's the core range. And then 3 years later, Brown-Forman says, hey, I'm going to buy Ben Riach, Glendronach, and Glenglassaugh. Billy Walker never really got around to doing much with the distillery. The 3 years weren't enough. Brown-Forman has now had the distillery for twice as long as Billy Walker did, 6 years. What have they done? Not much. Well, they did release that wood series. Now, another interesting fact, just to show what's going on there, how that's the ugly duckling of the Brown-Forman family, and was the ugly duckling of the Ben Riach family. According to the book, 2021, remember 2021? We had a little bit of a COVID year and so on. It says here that the distillery was only producing whiskey for 6 weeks of 2021. 6 weeks out of 52. How are you going to sell a 12-year-old whiskey if you're only producing for 6 weeks? Even Glengyle with the Kilkerran works longer than 6 weeks. I mean, hey, capacity is 1.1 million. If it was a normal year, they do 800,000 liters of alcohol. 5% of that would be peated, about 30 to 35 ppm. Something's not really happening at Glenglassaugh. Now, One of the first things Brown-Forman does was make us angry about the Glenglassaugh 12. All right, something about non-chilled filter being removed and so on. I remember buying this, I'm talking 3 years ago. This was 34 euros. Now it's 44 euros. Now, I group people when they do their whiskey lovers. I'm going to group them into three very broad categories. Category number one, they buy 1 or 2, maybe 3 bottles a year. Great. And then you have the middle category of people that are like, I'm buying more whiskey than I can drink. Something's new. Oh, I want it. Whiskey, 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 whiskey. All right. And then you have the mature whiskey drinker that said, I have more whiskey than I will ever be able to drink. I basically have stopped buying whiskey. Roy from Aquavita talks about that stage of his life now. You'll go out and buy something special every once in a while. You have a lot of stuff stashed away someplace, and you can drink from your whiskey depot for the rest of your life. And your kids are still going to be happy that they're going to get some stuff after you die. Now, for those of us that were wise enough a year or 2 ago to go out and buy maybe a case of the Glenglassaugh 12 when it was non-chilled filtered and natural color like this one was, congratulations, you were smart. For those of you that can still get the Glenglassaugh at a price which is almost similar to what we used to have a year ago, congratulations, well done. But most of us are going to be, oh, okay, our bottle's like this, we need to buy a new one, we go to the whiskey store or we go online. Like over here in Europe, we go, what? 46 euros? I paid 32 last time. What's going on here? And we're going to have that experience with a lot of bottles in 2023. It's going to be a Talisker 18, almost all the Diageo products, here Brown-Forman products, Pernod Ricard products, Campari. I can name all the different brands, the big conglomerates out there. They all are having to increase the price a lot. So, this bottle over here, as I said, Whiskybase 187665. I paid 59 euros for it. Anywhere between 62 and 66 at the moment. You can get it online. There is a beautiful, beautiful raisin Pedro Ximenez moment going on here. There's a thickness, there's a richness. I love the fact that it's 46%, that it's natural color, that it's non-chilled filtered. Well done, Rachel Berry. Well done, Brown-Forman. But even below, you have here this wonderful, like a blanket. But underneath this blanket, there's a tiny little bit of something going on that shouldn't be there. There's a little bit of a sourness, a little bit of a youthfulness going on here. All right, Glenglassaugh 12. Now, this is a dark chocolate. This has some European oak going on here. This is, I think, one of the best values for money, even at 45 euros, that you can buy out there. Personal opinion. All right, so I like this a lot. Now, let's try the two of these, 46, 43. Both non-chilled filtered, both no color added, according to the tins here. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. They took a mediocre to inferior product and tried to pimp my whiskey with Pedro Ximenez cask finish. It often works. Some people are still going to love this whiskey because they just get that Pedro Ximenez, that raisin, that sweetness, that syrupy moment, and it's there. But the whole time, it's as if I'm listening to wonderful music, and outside there's a construction site, and someone's with a jackhammer going, boom, 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 boom. And there's this sourness, there's this like baby spit moment going on there. There's a little bit of bitterness. There's a lot of old, yucky casks going on in the background that they just try to cover up with a nice finish. They didn't do a bad job of covering up, but you can't cover up something entirely, or in this case, they weren't able to. And so this is a C- whiskey for me. It does this, as you saw. The longer it's in the mouth, the worse the product becomes. Now, a second little sip. I can add my little 3 drops of water to this and see what happens. Well, 4, but that's okay. Still exactly the same thing. I must admit, the mouthfeel, the viscosity, the creaminess, the thickness. This is very well presented if the base product had been better. All right, so Brown-Forman, 2019, just 3 years earlier, they bought this. They can't do anything. They didn't make that whiskey. They found that whiskey in the warehouse and tried to pimp it up, and they did an okay job. Is it worth 60 some euros? No. Definitely a D minus for value for money. Ugh, that's hard. D. All right, C minus for the taste and D for the value for money. Now, in comparison, the Glendronach 12, let's take a little sip of water. This whiskey is totally different. They start out at the same point. This is actually a little bit weaker. The 43% versus 46%, it's noticeable. But then the European oak, the Pedro Ximenez Oloroso sherry, really kicks in. And this actually builds up to a crescendo at the end where you swallow, and the finish is actually better than the original mouth feel at the very beginning. I really thoroughly enjoy the Glendronach. This, and that's the difference between a really good whiskey and something that they try to pimp my ride. So, that's my personal opinion here. My question of the day, if I say the word Glenglassaugh, what do you think of? Now, I've had the privilege of tasting some 40-year-old, I think it was 38 and 41 or 40-year-old Glenglassaughs. They were amazing whiskeys. Were they worth 800 euros a bottle? No. But they were fantastic. I've had Evolution. I've had Torfa once. I've had now the Pedro Ximenez. This is the first video I think I've ever done in English about Glenglassaugh at all. I expect that Brown-Forman, they've spent their time now with Glendronach. They've totally revamped Benriach. And the next thing they're going to do, hopefully 2023 at the latest, I expect it 2024, is to actually offer us a unique core range of Glenglassaugh products. Maybe a port, maybe a sherry, maybe something else, maybe a bourbon. They're going to have some interesting things come out. The question is, what will the quality be? I don't know. What has what has happened at Glenglassaugh due to Brown-Forman's knowledge and leadership and quality management in the last 6 years? I don't know. But 6 years is more than enough time to have an okay whiskey. And if we wait 1 more year, 7 and then 8-year-old products, those are things that are in the market at the moment that can be excellent in my opinion. Let's see what happens here. I expect good, nice things. I expect this year to be the year of Glengarry, might be wrong. And I expect 2024 to be the year that we rediscover Glenglassaugh. Let's see if my predictions are right or totally, totally wrong. Write down in the comments what you associate, what you think of when I say the word Glenglassaugh. If anyone's been there, they do have a visitor center. It was opened 1 year before Billy Walker bought the distillery. The region of Scotland, one of the most beautiful views out into the ocean and so on from there. It's supposed to be breathtaking. Haven't been there myself. All right, thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, telling others, and sharing. Don't forget, thumbs up. Bye-bye, Whiskey Jason.